Welcome to Arise with Christ. We share stories and truths related to the temple. Together with you, our hope is to fortify faith in Jesus Christ and experience joy in covenant keeping.
Thank you for joining us on Arise with Christ. I'm Carolee Bailey, and I'm here with Plouzek. Our guest for this episode is one of the coolest people you could ever meet. His name is Plouzek, and he's Angelique's son.
We think you're in for a treat today as you listen to Isaac share his experiences. We're so grateful for his willingness to talk to us, and he shares with us his experiences growing up with anxiety and OCD.
Perhaps as you listen today, you will think of somebody in your life who may have similar struggles or who has expressed similar thoughts or feelings to what Isaac expresses. Our hope is that as you listen to Isaac, you'll gain insights that will enable you to better love and serve those in your own life who have these challenges, or to recognize that you're not alone, that other people feel the way you feel too.
Well, I could gush for hours about how great Isaac is, but I'll limit myself right now to his bio. As a busy college student at BYU-Idaho, Isaac navigates life with creativity, leadership, and a strong work ethic. The oldest of 4 brothers, Isaac inspires his siblings with his contagious enthusiasm for life. His artistic spirit finds expression in a myriad of mediums, from design and woodworking to photography. Isaac has a deep appreciation for the natural world and can often be found outdoors, where he enjoys biking, cliff jumping, and casting a line into a lake. As a natural problem solver, Isaac is always seeking ways to improve the world around him, finding innovative solutions to everyday challenges. In this episode, Isaac shares how anxiety and obsessive-compulsive disorder have impacted his life. Isaac loves the Lord and served him as a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the Colorado Denver South Mission, and then transferred to a service mission in the Utah Orem area. His passion for life is infectious, motivating those around him to embrace their own unique talents and make a positive impact on the world.
Isaac, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I've always thought of you as such a cool person. And one of the things that I think is cool about you is your creativity. And I love some of the things that you did as a teenager. Will you just talk a little bit about some of your creative outlets from your teenage years?
Yeah, totally. I've always been, a very physically active person, very creative, like you said. Through high school, I mowed lawns on the side. That's what I did for my job. And then if you guys are familiar with Etsy, it's like an online platform for creators, small businesses to sell products they make. For me, I made these wood rings on a lathe. I used my brother's that he got for Christmas, and then ended up...
You hijacked it?
Yeah, I hijacked it. He never really used it, but
That's true.
I was happy for it. And I kind of just went from there. Started out with something fun. I don't know. I'm always messing around, trying new things. And then I found out, I can make these and they're kind of cool. And I ended up selling them. Didn't have a crazy amount of business, but it was super fun. It kept me busy through COVID and through high school.
So what other things besides your rings have you enjoyed doing for fun?
The big one for me, I played baseball growing up. My mom would toss me balls when I was like 3.
Oh, yeah.
And we just hit them out in the front yard. I played baseball through, I want to say freshman year in high school. And then I was a small, scrawny kid, so it didn't work out for me. But mountain biking has been huge, skiing, really anything outdoors I love. And then the other side, creative stuff, making things, photography, I've always loved. And I took a pretty decent amount of art classes in high school, painting, drawing, whatever it was. But yeah, just anything to keep me busy, keep my brain going.
That's awesome. So what are you doing? Give us a little update on your life right now. You are going to school, you've been working. Tell us about your summer job maybe.
So I just got back from working with some buddies in Seattle just for the summer. And then I'm planning on finishing my associate's degree this fall up at BYU-Idaho in Rexburg.
Nice. What are you studying?
I'm studying business. That might change. I've looked into physical therapy, but for now, just sticking to business. It's pretty general.
Yeah, and sales was your summer job, right?
It was, yeah. I was selling pest control up there.
Was that a good experience? What was that like for you?
It was good. Yeah, it was my second year doing it. Last year, I was in Las Vegas. It was a lot hotter. I moved to Seattle. I actually switched companies because I had some buddies that were up there. And it was beautiful. Seattle's awesome. For listeners, if you've never been, it was really pretty. I got to spend my days in 70-degree weather instead of 115. So that was a plus for sure.
Yeah, I think you must be one tough dude to do door-to-door sales in Vegas in the summer.
It was tough.
You've mentioned you've learned some great things from that, though. Do you feel like that has built some skills?
Hopefully. Yeah, I think, the biggest thing, just work ethic. Plain and simple, it teaches you how to work. It's doing something hard every day. And I don't know, once you've done that for a while consistently, it just makes you a stronger person.
Awesome.
I think that's amazing. I don't think I could ever do that, Isaac. I admire you. You also have grown up dealing with anxiety and OCD. Can you tell us about what that looked like for you, maybe in your childhood and then your teen years?
I think for me, over the course of my life, like you mentioned, OCD, anxiety, bouts of depression, ADHD even. And this has looked different for me depending on, where I was at in my life. In my childhood, it was a feeling of constantly feeling like I needed to fix everything. I kind of felt like I was in the wrong with whatever I did, kind of just a subconscious thing. And it took me a while to realize too exactly what it was. Obviously, it's kind of complex. It's hard to explain to someone if they've never experienced it. I would explain it as just a feeling as something is off, and it's like an itch that you can't really ever get to. And yeah, during high school, as I grew up through my mission, through college, it's kind of changed. But obviously, I've found some things that have helped me to be able to cope.
I'm interested in your experience as a child a little bit. Is it okay if I ask you a couple more questions about that?
Mm-hmm.
You said it's sort of like an itch that you couldn't scratch or something just felt off. Are there scenarios that you can remember or situations that you felt it surface more than other times?
That's a good question. I think when I was younger, one of those situations was just social situations in general. It would kind of be a trigger for me for, I guess, just anxiety. A big one growing up was tasks. If I had an event coming up or schoolwork, homework, whatever it was, some important deadline, that would kind of trigger just that sort of emotional response for me, and I'd get pretty anxious. Through college, that's changed. Like I said, I've had bouts where it's gone more into depression, more into just being super anxious. Something that I did want to touch on, and I can expound more later, is church has always been kind of hard for me just sitting through. And I've been able to recognize that's totally separate from the gospel, those feelings of anxiety. But that's been hard for me throughout my life.
When you were young, kind of the first time our family, or at least me as a mom, started recognizing that something was going on that was affecting your life in a bigger way than just a normal everyday hiccup, was around your baptism. You started developing some scrupulosity. And for anybody who doesn't know, scrupulosity is a religious type of OCD. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think you deal with that as much now, maybe a little bit, but it manifested itself around the events of your baptism when you were 8 years old. Can you talk about that?
I think when we talk about scrupulosity, I guess I should explain OCD often goes after the things that you care about the most. And one of those things for me especially was religion. And so with my baptism, I think that's one of the first experiences that I had that I felt like, whoa, this is a big deal. And for me, that just brought up a lot of anxiety and a lot of certain feelings that I've never really experienced before. I think for me, OCD, it's kind of, made it difficult to see what's real and what's not. It's pretty tricky, and it's something that it's very hard to explain unless, again, you've experienced similar things yourself, similar thoughts. Like I kind of mentioned earlier, sitting through church was always super difficult as a young child, and it still is now, to be honest. It depends on the day, but sometimes I just get super anxious. I think that really bothered me because I'm like, what's wrong with me? Like, it's church and I'm supposed to love going to church, which maybe most kids don't feel that way, to be fair. And that was more of just an anxiety thing sitting there, but it did cause me to have obsessive thoughts about like, why do I feel like this? What am I doing wrong to make me not enjoy something that everyone else does? But just recognizing or taking it for what it is and just kind of taking a step back and realizing I can only control what I can control. I have been able to, separate that from my testimony because I've always had a testimony. I would describe myself as someone I've never really doubted the things I believe, and I've always been strong in my testimony. But obviously, when we talk about feelings of anxiety and however that may be brought up, it was difficult for me to, I guess, separate those, from my testimony.
So when you learn how to acknowledge this is anxiety that I'm feeling right now, I can move past this. Now, as an adult, when you are in those situations, have you found that it's easier to do that process of feeling it and letting it pass? Or has there been a change because you experienced it all these years?
I mean, as a child, it was kind of different because I was figuring out what it was. And yeah, I've definitely gotten better at navigating those feelings. Just realizing and accepting that it's anxiety and that's separate from you has kind of helped me. But just growing up, honestly, doing hard things and just learning new things, I think is one of the biggest things that's helped me. And with anxiety, it's kind of tricky because it moves on. It changes as you get older, and the source of anxiety moves on to different things. For me, I feel like I've gotten a lot better at navigating those feelings.
When you were a teenager, because that's a time of a lot of social interaction and friends are super important in those teenage years. What was it like as a teenager? How did that impact you?
I think as a teenager, I had my group of friends, but I kind of kept to myself a lot. I feel like a lot of the times I was just content being with myself. I spent a lot of time just pretty overwhelmed, just in general. And it was just sometimes easier for me to just chill out, be at home, whatever, take the easier out, which was good. But sometimes I do wish I just did more of everything. For me, the more I've been able to, just the more new experience I've been able to have, like, moving to college, going on a mission. We talked about doing sales, just moving all over the place and having those different experiences has helped me a lot to grow mentally.
Okay, so we've talked about the anxiety that you experienced as a child, and you're our oldest child in our family. And so it took maybe a little time to recognize, okay, what is a normal amount of anxiety for a child to be experiencing, and when is it appropriate to seek help? And I think that that is a question I've run into with a lot of parents wondering they might have a child in a situation that's struggling with school or struggling, like you said, going to church and sitting through church or social interactions. At what time is it appropriate to seek help? As a mom, I didn't understand what was happening. So I went to the library and I spent an hour looking for any book that might help. And it was a book that I found that it was so clearly obvious that your symptoms fell into obsessive-compulsive disorder. And that was really interesting for me. And one of the pieces of advice this particular book gave that I read said, try to help your child understand that this is a problem that they are having. This isn't them. And you touched on that a minute ago. And that was something you had already been doing. You had kind of labeled some of these compulsive behaviors that you had as you called them your weird things.
Yeah.
And so we kind of differentiated like, oh, is this how you're feeling right now? Or is this just kind of your weird things speaking? And maybe that sounds strange to say for some people, but it seemed to really help.
Yeah, I think exactly like you mentioned, just putting a label on it and realizing like, whoa, this isn't really me. It's feelings that I'm having, but it's not really me. That kind of just helped me to, I guess, navigate it a little better. And then from there is just learning more about it, learning exactly what's going on. OCD, for those of you who aren't super familiar, it's very complex. And there's a lot of different types of OCD. Different people face different things. I faced a lot of different types of OCD at certain times in my life. So just learning about those.
I think you mentioned this earlier. It kind of latches on things that are important to you.
Yeah.
So can you name a few of those things?
Church, health OCD, just making sure I'm doing everything that I can to be, the healthiest, which can be healthy, can be unhealthy. Those are honestly the biggest ones. Religion. I've been raised in a religious household, and that's something that's always been super important to me.
I think you're so wise, Isaac. I really like what you said about naming it. And I've heard that phrase, if you can name it, you can tame it. I don't know if that's always true, but I've seen that in some of my own children who have struggled with their mental health. Getting a diagnosis and learning what it was that was causing those feelings is such a relief to know, okay, this isn't me, this is anxiety, or this is depression, or scrupulosity, or, whatever the element of mental illness is that's the struggle. And I think that we can get to that place of identifying it and then trying to work with it and cope and gain skills and understanding about the specific mental illness that is affecting us. I also think that it's so important for people to recognize that there's help available to deal with mental health issues. Some of that help comes from Jesus Christ, and some of that help comes from professionals and medicines or therapy and other resources. And for you, what have been the tools that you've implemented in your life that have helped you be able to cope and function? I mean, you're a high-functioning working professional and college student dealing with these major things, what tools have you put in your toolkit?
I think labeling is just the first step. I like that phrase, if you can name it, you can tame it. But I think after that, I've done a lot of therapy. Some of them are pretty extensive. A lot of research. Some of it's helped me, some of it's not.
You went to a few different therapists and it took some time to find the right fit. Could you just talk about what that looked like for you a little bit?
I think, I don't know, it's probably like 15 when I went to like my first counselor, first therapist. And it was just talk therapy, pretty basic outpatient stuff. That definitely helped. Something that really helped me was I did a more intensive program. This was like probably a couple hours a day, I think every single day for a month. I mainly focused on targeting OCD in this program, which was done by exposure-based therapy. So for example, one of the things I would do is like put on my hat sideways or like pull down one of my socks or do something to make me feel like something was off, which sounds crazy. But then they kind of just teach you how to feel the feelings and like accept them instead of just trying to fix everything, which seems super easy. You're like, it's your hat. It's like, fine. But in someone with OCD, it just causes a ton of anxiety. And, so for me, that program really helped me to be able to, sit with the feelings I was having and be able to move on.
And you had some group therapy as part of that program as well, right?
Correct.
Did you enjoy the group therapy? I know you were a little bit nervous about that at first.
Yes and no. I mean, a lot of the people, we were all there for some form of OCD. Like I said, it can be very different depending on the individual. And for me, a lot of it was perfectionism and just hyper-awareness. For a lot of other people, it was relationship OCD, harm OCD. And so I think the biggest thing for me that was helpful to have the group was just to realize like, well, there's so many other people that have similar things. And even if it wasn't the exact same thing, we were all kind of there together and we were all on the same journey. I will say some things that have helped me a lot. I kind of hate to say it, but it's just a lot of the basics. Diet, sleep, exercise. Something huge for me is making sure I go to bed at the exact same time every night. I'm not the best at it still, but keeping like a very exact sleep schedule.
The structure and the routine is helpful in your life.
Yes.
If you maintain that, you feel better.
Structure is huge. I've realized it's all about just momentum, which for me is obviously avoiding Instagram, Facebook, whatever, the first of the day. Again, super cliche, but it actually has helped me a ton. I didn't notice anything because I would do like a media fast or whatever you want to call it for a few days and I didn't really notice anything, or I'd go off certain foods for a little bit. But once I started making those changes and following them for like weeks at a time is when I noticed huge differences. Another thing that's really helped me is changes in my diet. I'll get into specifics, but I've avoided certain trigger foods for me. And that alone like helped my focus a ton. I remember last semester, homework was still such a struggle and it's already like night and day better just with the diet changes alone.
Oh, that's great.
Do you feel like the anxiety and the OCD and the ADHD symptoms are comorbid? They're all kind of
totally
interrelated.
It's super weird, yeah, because one leads to another. Sometimes it's hard to even tell what it is because again, the restlessness, the anxiety, that is kind of associated with each of those.
One thing I've seen, Isaac, is sometimes someone who has a struggle with mental health, it gets to a place where it's so hard to continue to push back against that. There sometimes might be a tendency to think that God has forgotten you or give up on God. And you've talked about how you have a strong faith in Jesus Christ and a belief in Him. And in the struggle with anxiety and OCD, do you have a specific experience or a time when you felt that that faith in Jesus Christ is what helped you keep moving forward and propelled you forward in a time of challenge?
I mean, it's been tricky, but I think one of the biggest things that's helped me is just as cliche and kind of cheesy as it sounds, is just keeping internal perspective, realizing I'm here for a reason. The stuff that I face, I have it for a reason. Everyone's problems, are different depending on the individual. But for me, just recognizing that I have this for a reason. And even though I have no idea exactly why, I can tell you ways that I've grown, but just realizing that at the end of the day, things can only get better. And our time here on earth and all like the stuff that everyone faces is short if you keep an eternal perspective.
Oh, I love that idea of an eternal perspective. I think that's really key. And I think too about what Sister Johnson taught about Jesus Christ is relief. And specifically, she said, Jesus Christ is our relief. He said, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest," that is, relief and peace. "Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." It is through experience that we gain strength and empathy. Our covenantal blessing is to partner with Jesus Christ in providing relief, both temporal and spiritual, to all God's children. We are a conduit through which He provides relief. And I'm curious if you've seen any ways that you have experienced being a conduit to bring relief to others because of what you've gained and learned through your own experiences.
On my mission, I think I was able to help, hopefully, a lot of people. I served during COVID. I served in Denver. I spent most of the time in Grand Junction, which is like 3 hours from home here. But yeah, there was a ton of other people, since it was during COVID, that were kind of going through similar things just because, there's only so much we could do. It was kind of hard to get out. And so there wasn't anything specific that I did, but I do think, I would hope at least, that my example was able to help motivate other people to be able to move forward.
Isaac, it's so impressive to me that you had those feelings and experiences and struggles, and you had a desire to serve a mission, and you chose to serve a mission. And that was a complicated time for you and for the whole world when you were serving your mission. We were in the thick of a pandemic. You served under less than ideal circumstances and had some unique challenges. Why did you decide to serve a mission?
As long as I can remember, I've had a testimony of Jesus Christ, of the gospel. Even when I was little, I had a few just spiritual experiences that really helped strengthen my testimony. And so a mission is always something that I wanted to do. I did 2 semesters of school up at BYU-Idaho before my mission. And I remember not seriously considering, but in the back of my mind, I was like, dang, do I really want to serve? Because like you said, it was hard for me. I will say in my blessing, it blesses me to keep the commitment to serve a full-time mission.
Is that in your patriarchal blessing?
It is. And so that line in there, I read it and I was like, all right, well, I'm going. And I knew it was going to be difficult. Obviously, like I knew there was COVID, there was the stuff I had to deal with. And so I knew it wasn't going to be an easy experience. And it wasn't. It was super tough.
You mentioned that you had several experiences that led you to want to go, some spiritual experiences. Mm-hmm. Is there maybe one of those experiences that you'd be willing to share with us?
I don't know if there was like a huge, crazy, experience when I was little, but I remember honestly, like a lot of the campouts that we'd go on as youth, we'd have devotionals or testimony meetings, and I would just feel the Spirit super strongly. And it was pretty obvious to me that the Spirit was really speaking to me and just testifying of Jesus Christ, and testifying of the gospel. I've always struggled a lot at church, just feeling the Spirit, sometimes just because the anxiety makes it kind of hard to let other emotions in. But I do remember this one experience when I was passing the sacrament, probably 13, 14 years old. And I still haven't really felt anything like this since, to be honest. But I had just this overwhelming joy that was crazy. I don't know what sparked it, but I literally just felt the Spirit so strongly. And I felt God's love for me so strongly. And I just felt so happy. And so that's something that I think was super cool for me to experience.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, Isaac. I love thinking about you standing there holding a sacrament tray and having that experience come to you. And what a gift. I think the Lord gives us these glimpses. I like how you said that it wasn't a light switch moment. And I think Elder Bednar has talked about that, how sometimes the Spirit is like a light switch where you have a first vision or some profound, intense experience. But often it is like the sun coming up over the mountain at dawn and gradual light that comes. And when you talked about going on campouts and being in these situations where you were exposed to the Spirit and given opportunities to feel the Spirit, that gradually built your testimony. I think that's really beautiful. So thank you for sharing that. You were out on your mission during COVID. What was that like for you once you got there? What was your day-to-day experience?
When I first got there, I was with zone leaders. They were both super awesome guys. So that was good for me to first get there. We stayed pretty busy for my first couple transfers just because they had a bunch of responsibilities and stuff. We do exchanges with the APs, with anyone from our zone district leaders. And so it was fun. We stayed fairly busy. A couple transfers after that, though, I got moved to Grand Junction, which was probably the furthest place in our mission from the mission home. at that point, COVID was picking up in Grand Junction. I got COVID, my comp got COVID, but we were pretty much just locked down the whole day for, a while. And really the only thing we could do was like Facebook work, which just meant messaging random people on Facebook from Facebook groups, reaching out, doing whatever we could to spread the word without going out of our apartment. And honestly, that was super hard for me just because I am an anxious person. I like doing stuff. I like always staying super busy. And without being able to really get out and do a lot of those things that I wanted to be, it was pretty tough, but we got it done.
Each day as you're sitting there in your apartment on Facebook trying to contact strangers, what were you feeling? What was going on inside of you?
I just felt super, super anxious all the time. Every day, every waking moment, I just felt so anxious and I wanted to leave and just run. I think the longer I was on my mission, the feeling of anxiousness faded a little bit, but it kind of just turned into depression. I don't know if my brain just started to give up. I would just be tired all the time.
Well, that's a battle. Your brain is waging a battle every day.
Yeah.
So I can imagine that your brain was very tired.
It was just too much. And I kind of just started tuning stuff out.
You mentioned on your mission, a coping technique that you had was journaling.
Yeah, journaling, honestly, has helped me a lot, especially on my mission. I journaled every single day. During personal study, we'd get, an hour or so to study. During COVID, it was a lot more. Really, we'd have an hour that was actually blocked off. But in reality, it was 4 or 5 plus hours. So obviously, I'd read my scriptures and do the basic things, but being able to journal, write out my thoughts, I think really it just helped me get it all out there. And even just help myself realize kind of what I'm feeling and break down everything. A lot of times when people, face anxiety, depression, whatever it is, intrusive thoughts, it's very complex and it might not seem that way. But like I said, being able to just break it down and see where it's coming from was huge for me, especially on my mission.
So speaking of your mission, you've expressed that those were some of your lowest times. And you mentioned to me that when the Savior was on the cross and he felt the presence of his Father leave, and he did not feel God there. And you expressed to me that you felt that way during that time of depression. Would you be willing to talk through that?
Depression is really tricky because it totally blocks the way that you feel the Spirit. And for me, that was pretty much completely. And so I just felt super alone all the time. And that being said, I still knew that God was there. I knew that Christ was there. He died for my sins. The church is still true, right? That's kind of independent of my testimony, which helped me. But yeah, it was definitely a lot of dark, tricky times on my mission. But I guess the biggest thing, other than just keeping busy and trying to keep a good headspace, God is always more than willing to help us, even if we can't really see exactly how that is in the moment. As long as you're keeping the commandments and submitting to God's will, then you're on the right path.
At some point, you're out there dealing with these challenges and struggles, and then you ended up on a phone call with your mission president, your stake president, and your parents. What was that conversation like?
Yeah, I had the phone call. We talked about some service mission opportunities, and then I ended up coming home and doing a service mission for a bit.
After you made that decision and you had the phone call and you came home, what was life like for you after you got home?
It was good. I served at the motion picture studio in Provo, which is where they film a lot of the Book of Mormon videos, which you've seen. So that was pretty sweet. We got to help out. We made jewelry for the actors. We'd wash a lot of the studio vehicles. We'd sort camera equipment. So it was kind of cool. I felt like I was doing something that was useful. So that was awesome. And then on Thursdays, definitely my favorite part of my service mission is I'd serve in the baptistry at the Timpanogos Temple. And I think it was super cool because the more time I spent at the temple, just from week to week, I only did a day a week there. But the longer I was there, the more I enjoyed being there. After a few months, I started to really look forward to going to the temple just because it was always a really awesome experience.
And that was quite a change from prior to your mission. You never enjoyed going to the temple.
Yeah, I think pre-mission, whenever I'd go to the temple, same thing that I've talked about, but I'd get super anxious and it was just hard for me to feel at peace. It was difficult for me, but it made me think of what President Nelson said about, I don't know the exact quote, how he says it, but he mentions in one of his talks, if you're not having the experience that you wish you were having at the temple, then you shouldn't go less, you should go more. And so it kind of made me think about that because, like I said, the longer I was there, I just enjoyed it more every time and I felt the Spirit more.
Thank you for sharing with us about your service mission. And thank you for doing that and serving both proselyting and service missions. That's wonderful. As you were talking about your feelings about the temple, I wanted to share a quote from Elder Haney. And we've referred to this BYU devotional that he gave on the podcast before. But this particular part, he talks about a book that he read by Truman Madsen, where Brother Madsen identified things that prevented him from fully benefiting from the temple experience. And then this is what Elder Haney said. He said, I feel impressed to share them with you today, especially to help those who go to the temple out of a sense of duty, but who wonder if they are missing out on something. Please know that the Lord loves you for your faithfulness in coming to his house, even if you have not yet had the experience for which you had hoped, fasted, and prayed. You are in many ways like Adam when the angel asked him, Why dost thou offer sacrifices unto the Lord? And Adam said unto him, I know not, save the Lord commanded me. Because of Adam's continued obedience, the Lord instructed the angel to teach Adam why he was commanded to offer sacrifices. I believe the Lord will treat you in a similar fashion, including sending angels if necessary to teach you. The Lord was serious when he promised that all people who shall enter upon the threshold of the Lord's house may feel his power and acknowledge that it is his house. I love that quote from Elder Haney, and I think it really addresses the things that you experienced too, where you were missing something. Maybe it wasn't the experience that you hoped for when you first started that service mission, but the Lord blessed you with great opportunities and you came to love it. And I think that's what President Nelson is trying to teach all of us about the temple, that if we will go, we will come to love it.
And I believe that our sacrifices really show what we truly value. In thinking about the sacrifices that you made to serve a mission and transition to a service mission and serve diligently there, the Lord recognizes that sacrifice, and he's so grateful that you gave him what you had to give.
That's a beautiful thought, that the Lord honors your sacrifice and you were able to keep your covenant that you made in the temple to sacrifice and to consecrate your time and effort and talents. And the Lord gave you that sweet feeling of being in the temple. Mm-hmm. What a blessing.
Elder Holland gave a beautiful talk about mental health in 2013 titled Like a Broken Vessel. He said, believe in miracles. I have seen so many of them come when every other indication would say that hope was lost. Hope is never lost. If those miracles do not come soon or fully or seemingly at all, remember the Savior's own anguished example. If the bitter cup does not pass, drink it and be strong, trusting in happier days ahead. I know for you that bitter cup has not fully passed. What is that like, being in a space where you're still navigating the struggle? You're still in the wrestle. How do you keep hope?
I think, first of all, just changing the way you view it and your mindset on it, rather than viewing it as a wrestle with God, just submitting to know his will for you, which that's super hard. Like at the end of the day, there's nothing I can do about it, and I can only work with what I have. And I think, too, just recognizing that everything God does and everything he gives us is for our benefit.
Do you feel like you have been able to learn and grow from these difficult things?
I've definitely grown in a lot of ways, like mentally overcoming some of the issues. But the big thing, I think, going through everything has just helped me to be a stronger person. It's helped me to just keep moving forward. And that translates into other areas of my life, too. Like with whatever I'm doing. I can't say I'm a runner. I think runners are great examples of people that just keep going no matter what. But I think whether it's like college, work, whatever it is, just being able to keep moving forward and keep pressing on.
Can you articulate the hope that the knowledge of the plan of salvation gives you to keep moving on?
Absolutely, yeah. Just that the knowledge that what we have, obviously we're so blessed with the knowledge that we have. That's been huge for me. If I didn't know about the plan of salvation, I didn't know about the end goal for all of us, I think it'd be a totally different story. I would not be motivated at all to be able to, change and grow. But kind of like I mentioned earlier, since I know we all have a plan, I know things happen for a reason, and all of us have a huge amount of potential that I don't think many of us even understand. And just that alone has really just fueled me to be able to overcome a lot of the stuff I faced.
Isaac, I'm so blown away by you and your ability to articulate your focus on the perspective that these struggles are for your benefit and growth, and that you can see that. I think that's so amazing and admirable, and that it does stem from your knowledge of the gospel of Jesus Christ and your hope in him and the plan that our Father has for us. I just really admire you and your willingness to persevere and your dedication to do that. It's really, really inspiring to me. I also am amazed that when going to church is challenging and difficult, sitting in the temple must be challenging and difficult. How do you continue to do those things faithfully?
To be honest, I think just the fact that it's what God has asked us to do. Like, if I believe in God and I have a testimony, then that's what I want to do, even if it's hard. One of my favorite scriptures, which if you've served a mission, you've definitely heard it, but it's Ether 12:27. It says, "And if men come unto me, I will show unto them their weakness. I give unto men weakness that they may be humble. And my grace is sufficient for all men that humble themselves before me. For if they humble themselves before me and have faith in me, then will I make weak things become strong unto them." I love this for obvious reasons. It just, plain and simple, it says that if we humble ourselves, then God's going to make us stronger. I've had lots of times that I felt super weak, super stuck in my life. But again, just realizing that this is God's will and I can't change it. So I might as well do the best I can with what I have. And I think for me, that's just looked like doing the everyday things, keeping the commandments, reading the scriptures every day, saying my prayers, going to church, even if it's hard, and just doing the best I can. Hopefully one day that'll pay off.
Yeah, I think that's amazing to put your faith and trust in God in that way, Isaac. And I was thinking about how you said things like, I have to do the best I can with what I'm given. And I was tying that back in my mind to your creative streak and the creativity that you have. I was thinking about how you are creating your life within the parameters that you've been given, and you're seeking to make it a consecrated life, a life where you serve Jesus Christ and try to follow him. And that's a wonderful example of using your creativity with what you've been given to make something good. And that's what we're all invited to do, to function within the parameters of the gospel of Jesus Christ and within the other limitations and challenges of our mortal journey, and try to make something good and do the best we can with what we're given. In that process, those weaknesses can become strengths. And that is how we consecrate our life and become like Jesus Christ. So I love what you shared. Thank you for sharing that. Isaac, how would you encourage someone to arise with Christ?
I would just encourage everyone to make the most out of what they have. And obviously that looks totally different based on the individual, based on your circumstances. I've talked about a lot of things that I try to focus on, but I think just it comes down in large part to the basic things, the small things every day, because that's what's going to compound over time. Just like the scripture in Ether, with whatever your trials are, maybe you feel like you have an easy life. I kind of doubt most people feel that way. But I think if everyone just focused on what they can control and doing the best they can and letting the Savior help them, ultimately they're going to end up in the right place.
We are grateful that you joined us today. We would love to hear your stories about how you arise with Jesus Christ. You can find us on Instagram at arise.with.christ or email us at arisewithchrist.temples@gmail.com.